Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Speedrun Insider. My name is CJitsallGewd. Thank you so much for joining me this week, as you do every week. Thanks to everyone who supports the show, doing things that you do, like, share, subscribe, download, listen on YouTube, downloading it for your neighbor and your neighbor's kids. Neighbors' kids are pretty smart, but they have dumb fingers. They need help sometimes. You know, do all the things that you do to support the show. We will not ever be at the mercy of the algorithm. We can talk to the people that we want to talk to. And as we wrap up the All-Stars series that we are doing, I am very excited to do this with, I think you were guest number 10. You were episode 10. I'm very excited to do this with the guest from episode number 10. He's my friend and yours, CCNeverender. What's going on, bud?
Hey, what's going on?
Dude, you know, it's been a whole week of a day, but, we do our best to get through.
Indeed we do.
Any wild and crazy stories you want to hit me with right away? It's okay. I actually have something prepared. I have something for us to do that's prepared and planned.
All right.
I know. So, I don't know how well you may have this information ready and recalled, but I did a podcast recently with Tomato Anus, a friend of the show.
Right.
And I did a podcast with him recently. And in that podcast, we talked about what are the influences for speed docs. And it's a question that I didn't have a great answer to in the moment. I had to kind of stop and think about it for a second. Obviously, listening to the show, you don't know that. And it was specifically geared towards the idea of, like, do you have YouTube influences that, informed decisions that you or I made in the making of Speed Docs and the creative decisions that the show, presents. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about it, and I'm interested to hear what you say, because I said in the show, this question would have been really good for CC because he watches so many video essays and so many more channels like that. And the channels that I watch, I would be hard-pressed to say that I watched those channels and were inspired to make speed docs after that. So I'm curious, are there YouTube influences for you that either in the beginning or later on informed creative decisions we've made on the show?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple, that come off to the top of my head. And obviously, Summoning Salt is probably the biggest influence, which, if anyone who watches our content doesn't immediately recognize that we were inspired by Salt to do this, I don't tell you,
I think I said the same thing. I think I basically said, listen, it would be foolish for us to say that we were not inspired by Salt for the concept of the show.
Yeah.
Right? That's foolhardy.
Absolutely.
But, moving past the obvious, yes,
yeah,
he did this, we got the idea, we learned it from watching you! Other creative outlets.
Yeah. Well, a couple other things that sort of inspired me in this idea of doing speed docs, was there's two influences that I immediately think of, and one of those was, we don't really want to talk about them too much, but Our White Goose had a speed lore series about GoldenEye history, and we won't get too far into the person, but I loved hearing stories about how history developed, how strats developed, how people were, talking to each other and one-upping each other and the competition and all this. It was really fascinating to hear the inner workings of a community from someone who was there in person and actively participating. And another thing that really inspired me was ZFG, popular Ocarina of Time speedrunner, he called it a movie night, where they watched something like a 8-year-old any percent run, which was like 3 hours long, right? It was one of the oldest any percent runs that they knew of. It was before all the crazy things where they could like just wrong warp to Ganondorf. It was like essentially like a glitchless, not glitchless, but essentially a like no major skips kind of thing. And they watched it, and ZFG did commentary over it. He was like, oh yeah, so before this was found, what we used to do was we used to do this. And since he's been around for like that long, he had insight into what was going on. And that really, I was like, man, I want to do something like that for my game. And the very first iteration of a world record history speedrun, or speedrun world record history sort of video for Snap was, I think it's still available on my channel somewhere. It's like a
the speedrun showcase.
Yes, the speedrun showcase, where I picked 5 different runs from the course of history. I think I picked Gia's 2402, which was a 2008 run. 2008, 2007? It is a long time ago. And then I picked a Riker Z run, which I think was 2230 or something like that. And then I picked Spark for his 2214. And then I picked, I think it was Drogi for his 2110. And then Levon with his 2058? Or whatever time it was.
Yeah, because you did it with Levon, right?
I did it with Levon. Levon and I sat down, and Levon wasn't super informed about the history. Like, I had been doing a lot of research on it, so I had already seen all these runs, which is why I picked them out. But he hadn't, and so we kind of walked through and like, oh, they didn't know about this yet. Like, oh, that's really interesting that like they didn't do the Electabuzz Apple thing, right? Oh, they didn't do Mankey Snipe yet. You know, oh, they weren't even aware of like you can get this kind of picture and that would give you like 800 more points. Like, dude, like that's crazy. I can't believe I forgot that we didn't know that, right? Or I forgot that's how we used to do that strat. You know, so it was a lot of fun doing that. But those were the 2 big influences for me wanting to do, or I mean, outside of Salt, obviously. Those were 2 other really big influences for me. And as far as sort of like the actual content that we make on Speed Docs nowadays, one of the big influences for me would be No Clip, which is a documentary series about video game development. And they go to those developers and they set them down and they sit them in front of a camera and they do a really fantastic job of laying out the groundwork of like, what was the company doing at the time? How did their studio develop? How was like the design, and like they pitched it to different publishers and stuff like that. And they tell really cool stories. And I had seen a No Clip documentary when we were doing that. And I think that was where I got the idea of we should have runners do interviews and use interview segments in our videos. It is directly correlated with that No Clip documentary that I watched.
Yeah. I remember, I think I think this is interesting, and I think it's an interesting tangent that we can circle back to and make a larger point on. I don't think people really know how different you and I are as people.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is that I know that I watch a lot of television and movies, so a lot of my influences don't come from YouTube. And I think I said that when I was talking with Tomato Anus. It was like, most of the things that I'm influenced by are things that I watched in TV or movies or whatever it was, right? Or like just like watching documentaries, like real documentaries. I'm not saying that these are fake documentaries, but like,
the big
nature.
production ones, yeah.
Yeah, the ones where you're going to sit in a yurt for a year waiting for this, like, grasshopper to jump or get eaten by a snake or whatever, you're doing.
Right.
And, I'm really big into sports, which you're not. You're big into Melee, and if I had to pick a Smash, I think I'd either pick 64 or Smush. And, there's lots of other differences, and these are all superficial. Obviously, we have a good friendship and a good working relationship.
Indeed.
But, like, the things that influence you seldom influence me. And likewise, because we're having a conversation. I think I recommend videos. We both recommend videos to each other all the time, and I do my best to watch the ones that you recommend, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that my video suggestions go on your watch later list to die.
No, they don't. I watch them.
I was thinking about the Last Dance, which I don't think you saw.
No, I want to see it.
Yeah, it's really good. It's on Netflix. It's really good. But that's more of, like, in line with things I like. I really like SB Nation. I really like CGP Grey.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also something to this too. I mean, the concept of the show, whatever, right? I mean, we can probably cobble together a list, you and I, right now, live on the air, and be like, if you watched these videos, you'd get a pretty good idea of, like, where we got most of what we do from.
Right.
Down to even how we do it. But, like, the harder question, right? Like, the deeper question. Like, where do you get, like, inspired from? And, like, where do you draw from? And this is an idea that I heard from Teller, from Penn and Teller, the Magic Duo.
Yep.
And CC, in his role on the show, gets to have a verbal relationship with the audience. They listen to him, they trust him, they laugh with him. They have to trust you because you're presenting information. If they don't trust you, they don't believe the things that you're saying.
Right.
Right? So to some degree, they trust you. They have a relationship with you. They don't have a relationship with me in a verbal way.
Mm.
They have a relationship with me that's silent. And that is only told visually. And I guess for the people that either really love the slates or really hate them, through the little text that I throw on screen, which is never cleared with anybody except me.
You know what's really funny is you're making this Penn and Teller comparison, and it's apt for the video, but it's the exact opposite in real life.
Yeah, that's the best part. So in real life, I'm Penn, and CC's Teller.
Absolutely.
But in Speed Ducks, in the actual production of the content, it's the other way around. And I, specifically, when we started the conversation, who's going to do the commentary? Maybe not for Snap. I think Snap, you were going to do it. That was your bag. That was our bag. But for other videos, I think it was like, all right, we had the conversation, and I said I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to be the voice of a show. Here I am, right? 40, 100 episodes into this fucking thing. But I didn't want to be the voice of the show. And I actually really fought with that for a long time. And we talked about that a lot. Like, I didn't want to be a public face on a show. I wanted to have my background role. I still kind of do. That doesn't leave me, right? Entertaining a group of 20 people is not the same thing as entertaining a group of, 10,000 people or 1 million people, right?
Right.
But I liked what Teller said is, like, when you're on stage, the audience can also not talk. They can't talk back to Penn. Penn can't have a conversation with you. Mm-hmm. So there's an intimacy to being on stage and not being able to talk. And the way that I relate that into what we do is there's an intimacy in not having a way to communicate with the audience that isn't visual. Right? Mm-hmm. All I can do is react with them, or react and they can react with me, right, visually. And I thought that was really interesting. So But yeah, it is. You said it. It is the opposite in real life. I talk, and you get a few words in edgewise between my breaths.
Yes, that is pretty accurate.
I don't know if this was an influencer speed docs, but the video got recommended to me again today, and it reminded me. Do you remember when I had that idea that we were gonna buy the boxes for the games, and we were gonna have them on like a little pulley cart with a CRT, and we were gonna like film the game coming across the screen?
That sounds vaguely familiar. I do remember the whole boxes thing, but I don't remember the pulley cart so much. But
we built a. All right, we're gonna get real deep into the business lore here. JR had this idea for a show. He's gonna fucking kill me when he hears this. JR had this idea for a show called Wheels Up that we worked on for a little bit, and then we ended up not working on it anymore. I think because of the pandemic mostly. But there was also some like FCC kerfuffle. Or was that FCC? What's the plane people?
I don't know the acronym, but yeah,
the plane people, not the censorship people. Yeah. So they're like, hey, listen, you can't have a plane over this weight. And it's like, damn, that kind of kills the concept of the show. The concept of the show was going to be that JR was going to make model planes, and he was going to build them, but not make models. He was going to make his own models based on planes from history. So, actually, no. It was planes from TV shows. Then we found out, and probably we should have learned this earlier in the process, but as CGP Gray says, you only know at the end what the fastest way from the beginning was. Mm-hmm. JR can't build models.
That is true. That is very true. It's very tough.
He technically can. But we were having problems, and we like set up the whole shop in my garage. And it was like, yeah, it's very hard. And I'm like, yes, I believe it is. And so we had all the foam and everything. And it, like, Jared's listening to this and he's pissed. But I'm saying it in a positive way. Like, we realized that we couldn't do it. So we shifted the focus to be about real planes. We weren't going to build anything. It was going to be like an edutainment kind of show. It has some really cool assets, by the way.
Yes.
I told JR that in my private time that I would like to work on it with him. If I had any. But I remember we had this idea that he was going to build the pulley cart. And I was going to, like, we were going to, like, shift the table. We were going to move the box because we couldn't figure out how to move the box without people seeing it. So we were going to move the table to make it look like we moved the box.
Beautiful.
That's some deep cut right there.
We had a lot of ideas in the early days. We didn't know how we wanted to do it, but we kind of hit our stride eventually.
Like the 3 pounds of C podcast.
Dude, I still miss the 3 pounds of C. I wish it never will make the light of day, but that was a time.
So if you want to tell people what 3 pounds of C is, I think we've mentioned it, but go ahead.
I'm trying to remember the exact details. You have so much of a better memory for this than I do. But we had a podcast where we're like, let's do a podcast of just you and me. It doesn't have to be speed docs. It doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't even have to be speed running. It's just us, right? And you're like, I'm just going to walk around the grocery store and write down a couple of ideas. And you walked around and you wrote Delicatessen. That was going to be the name of our podcast. I think you also had like roast beef or something on there too, right? And then one of them was 3 pounds of C, and I said that is the perfect name for a podcast with CC and CJ.
Yeah. So I went to the grocery store for inspiration, but I think in the podcast that we recorded, you said you never got out of the deli.
That's right. You had a whole bunch of things that they're all deli related.
It was like roast beef, $11.99 a pound or something, and it was like, no, we can't make that the name of the podcast. So yeah, no, it was a fun show. There's a little thing that you people don't know about me. And that is, as much as I like editing video, I fucking can't stand editing audio. And so, if, and I think I've said this on past shows, if Speedrun Insider was predicated on my ability to edit audio, there would be exactly one episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't stand editing my own voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, God, I would just put it off forever. And I'm really not a big procrastinator, but I just would not be able to do that. That would not be a good environment for anyone, or a good deal for anyone.
Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to have a podcast until they have to edit it, and they're like, "Ah, shit."
Yeah, I enjoy every other aspect of podcasting. I like scheduling. I like scheduling everyone else's time. I like scheduling my own time. I also really like how much, like, you know, you get out of doing a podcast. If you record for, you know, and we do cut, we do talk in the beginning. But if you sit down and record 2 hours of Speedrun Insider, you get 90 minutes of show.
Yeah.
It's a really good return on your investment.
Absolutely.
Whereas we probably put a few hundred hours into Speed Docs and get a 60 to 90 minute video.
Yeah, the pound for pound podcast just returns so much more than almost everything else. And it's also great content. You know what I mean? It's content that you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah. I know you listen to the show a lot. I think one of the things that you said, I think it was a couple weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago at this point, you said that I talk about you every episode.
I do always enjoy a little cameo where you're like, oh man, CC, he does this one thing. I'm like, A lot of times I'm like, yeah, I do that. Every once in a while I'm like, I don't do that. But nothing comes to mind. I can't give you an example. But, you know, every once in a while I'm like, yeah, you got it. You know me well enough. You can represent me here.
I definitely don't think you like my my CC laugh.
Yeah, your version of my laugh is not quite what I would say is up to snuff.
I do like, however, your imitation of my imitation of your laugh, where you're just like, and me doing an imitation of that would be like, it's just because I think it's just like, you know, it's just like this little like coffee like laugh, you know, and it's like you know, it's like in the chest, and then you're like, my laugh doesn't sound like that at all, and then you doing an imitation of mine. Yeah, yes, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, see, that's the comparison. Is that that's what you do to me? It's like, no, man, it ain't like that. But then again, it's a caricature, so I mean, it's just turned up to 11. So
yeah, I think that's part of the interesting thing. Someone asked me the other day. Okay. I'm gonna bring this up because it's something that's been asked a lot recently. I don't know why, but then someone asked me another question that was like the opposite, right? Recently, and I don't know why, people keep asking if we live together.
I knew that was coming up, yeah.
And I don't know what we ever did to give people that opinion.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Like, what did we do that would make you think that we live in the same space? We've never been in the same place at the same time except for 3 occasions.
Yes.
And there's only pictures of us together at 2 of those. 3 of those. Yeah, every one of them. Okay, that's not an important distinction.
I was about to say.
So yeah, there's pictures of... But, like, it's not like you're in my stream. Right? I'm not in yours.
Yeah.
We're in the chat. We're not on camera.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I've never been to your house.
Correct. Nor I to yours.
Yeah. You are always invited. But we live in different parts of the country, right? We live in different time zones.
It's true.
I think that, like, and people also are like, someone then asked me, do you live with JR? I'm like, I don't live with JR. JR lives in the same area. I mean, JR comes over a lot more than CC does because JR lives 20 minutes away and this is technically the Speed Doc's office that I'm recording the podcast in. But, like, I don't know. Do we? Like, it's just like such a weird thing for people to think. But then someone asked me, shortly after someone asked, hey, do you live together? Are you and Cece friends?
God, I hope so.
I said, no, I choose to spend all my free time, like literally almost all of my free time with someone I hate.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't be the first person to do that. History's filled with that, but yeah.
Like, okay, in this scenario where I'm like, okay, I understand that these people, they don't get it, right? They don't get it. It's like, it's interesting. There's a curiosity there. I understand the curiosity, but there's a part of it too that I'm interested in, right? Because what if we weren't? Does that dilute the work that we do if we weren't friends? We're friends, and it's a relationship that I think is cultivated from being an online friendship, but definitely reinforced by having met each other in person.
Yeah.
Right? But, like, what if we weren't? Like, like Adam Savage and Jamie Heineman, famously not friends. Penn and Teller, famously not friends, to go back to Penn and Teller. Like, I guess there's a part of it that's like, I get the curiosity because I have curiosity too about some people and their relationship, but I'm like, does it actually matter if we're friends or not? Like, does it matter that we live together? Does it matter that we, like... It's like, there's gonna be, like, the Speed Docs fanfic at one point. It's like, it's just like, who cares? Does it matter? What do you think?
I'll say two things. One, I think it's really interesting when you hear, like, oh, the Mythbusters weren't friends. Like, I think they famously said that they never once had dinner outside of the show. And there is one episode of the Mythbusters where they actually have a dinner party as part of their myth, right? And it's like the first time they ever, like, socialized or whatever. They spent time together. So that's kind of an interesting aspect. And Penn and Teller is actually insane to me that they're not friends. And I guess their definition as friends is probably something different, where they're probably cordial and they're cool with each other, but they're also like, I'm going to go my way and you're going to do your thing, and we'll meet back up for the show, I think that I don't know if I could really work together with people that I don't like. In fact, the coworkers I don't dislike almost any of my coworkers except for a few. And if I had to work with them on a regular basis, I would actually hate everything about that. So, a part of me is like, I don't know if I could really seriously do this if we weren't friends.
I mean, we've definitely had a conversation before. Like, we could not work together if this was the case.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. There was one other thing. I forgot my train of thought. Give me 1 second. I will think about it. Yeah, I got it. So the other thing is that I think it's hard to describe the sensation, but sometimes you see, like, in a movie, it's like, oh, those two characters are like, they're like the characters that are like dating in the show or whatever. And then you find out, oh, they're actually dating in real life, or they're actually married. Like, that's so cool. Like, just recently I saw, like, a couple of the kids from School of Rock, the movie, are getting engaged or getting married now. And it's like,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, good for them. I'm like, I'm happy about that. Not because it matters at all, but it's like, oh, that's cool. That's pretty cool. Or like, there was one show that I liked called Psych.
Dule Hill is in that show.
Yeah. And
he's also in The West Wing.
Yep. The main character and the main police officer, they kind of have like this sort of flirty relationship, and it's because they're married in real life.
That's cool.
So it was kind of like, whenever I heard that, I was like, aw, I kind of have that like, oh, that's sweet. So I think there is a part of that where people are like, it's like, oh, I want to know, are you guys friends? because to them it's like the work you do is great, but like it would be weird if you weren't friends, or when you find out, it's like, oh, yay, I'm glad to hear that. So
yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing is that we're able to work when we need to work, and do the friend thing when we do the friend thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would be very easy to resent you if we couldn't go back and forth between those two modes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it's like when, like, I don't remember, this is a really obscure way to say this, but there was an episode of like Dexter's Lab where he went to college and he was trying to study, and then like everyone's like, no, party, and it's like, oh, no, it's study time, and they're like, no, it's party time, and they're like, party. Then finally he gets in on the party, and then the next night he's like, yeah, party, and they're like, no, it's study time, right? Like, everyone else is in on the wave. It'd be really easy to be resentful of someone. And I think that there's this misconception that, like, for example, like, we picked each other to work with. We picked each other.
Right.
You normally don't pick your colleagues. You never do, right?
Yeah.
So it's a situation where it's like, oh, well, hopefully you would pick someone that you like. And people change too and everything, so it's not a perfect metaphor, I guess, but I guess just like, I don't know that it matters as much. I know that we've talked about like, hey, if X or Y were the case, we couldn't work together.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't think it'd have to be pretty major for us to not work together anymore.
I mean, yeah, it would have to be like in violation of a moral absolute.
Indeed.
Of which, how many of those do we really have? I have one.
Yes.
Or two. I'm unintentionally bringing up something that I'm not going to mention, but I keep unintentionally bringing it up, and I'm like, oh, this is part of a larger conversation we had that I want to get away from.
Yeah.
But every time I keep trying to come up with something, it's like, oh no, I keep going back. I have something prepared I thought would be interesting too.
Sure.
Before we just start, shooting the shit. Just like the end of the organized portion of the podcast before it devolves into, probably abject madness. I wanted to talk to you. I have a list here compiled from YouTube comments of criticism.
Okay.
That we often ignore because it's like, or like, I don't say we ignore it, but it's not something that like we address. Right? Because it's like, okay, So I thought it would be funny or interesting to hear the answers to these questions. I have a list of feedback here.
Sure.
I'll start with, I'm not going to use anyone's names or anything because I don't want to incentivize people to make comments with criticism of varying quality, I'll say. Mm-hmm. And the first one is, you should release more videos. You will never grow at the current release schedule that you release at.
I would say well, first of all, it's not true. We do grow. Every video we put out gets us more followers, more subscribers, more views, more watch time, right? So I don't think release schedule is inherently the main driver of growth, although it is a huge factor. But so there's that. But also there's two things that are really important to this. Is that one, these videos take a lot of time.
Yes.
Right? Like you said it earlier, we put hundreds of hours into this stuff, and it's like, you want me to put down everything that I have going on and just spend my entire life dedicated to just doing this? That will A, lead to burnout, B, we will burn through so many games so fast, I don't think it's a sustainable model, and C, like, I don't think the content would be better just rushing it out the door, So for me, it's like we take our time because we know we want the videos to be as good as we can make them. We want to really sit and polish and put this stuff together. So we make videos on our own time because we both work jobs, right? We're very busy with our real jobs because YouTube doesn't pay us that much money. Yeah, I don't know. Sit your ass down and wait for another video. I don't know.
People, when they say that, I am almost positive they don't know how much time it takes to make a video.
Yes. The person who makes that kind of comment has never made a video like anything we've ever made before. Mm-hmm. In fact, they might have never made a single thing in their life, which that's kind of harsh. But at the same time, that person has no respect for what we do, you know? So, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I will say that I look at the people's profiles that make these comments and I'm like, I'm not judging you, but like, if you tried to make something like this, like, and to be sure, the first video that we made didn't look like the last video we just put out, right? They don't look that way, right? It's a process. It's iterative. You learn a lot each time. Things come up each time that you have to, like, you know, deal with, and you grow from those. I mean, we talked about it. We had a lot of, like, just, like, weird things happen. Like, my computer died in the middle of, because the rack video was so big, we had to go buy RAM in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. Because it was so big, I couldn't run it. Or, like, my computer died during another video, and I had to go out and buy a new computer. Yeah. But they definitely, like, just don't respect the fact that it's, like, their iteration of what we do would not be as good as the last video we put out, which is, like, you know, our videos aren't that good either, our first ones. Mm-hmm. But, like, they also have no concept of how long that would take.
Exactly.
Everyone thinks that you just, like, oh, just go to the SRC page and just, you know, you just start to, okay, it's the history, and that you're done. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever right. Nothing is ever right. Ever.
You know what's funny is that, don't look for it. Don't try to find this person. I did see a Wind Waker history video that was like 7 minutes long. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and it was sort of like I don't know how to describe them. Kind of like cartoonists that draw like really kind of like sketch animations where it's not like fluid animation where everything's constantly moving, but like they just draw it and every like a second or two the guy changes his character, you know, like, you know, it's really just sort of like really quick sketch animation. And this person did like a 7-minute video where they're like, okay, this person does this video and then this was discovered, and then from there they were able to do this, then beat this time, they beat this time, and then he went over there and did this thing, and then that guy beat this thing, and then this guy beat this thing, and that guy beat that thing, and that's the history of the game. I was like, I don't think I learned.
Technically, that is correct.
Like, I don't think I learned anything. I mean, I'm glad that the guy like was interested enough to make the video, but I'm like, I think you do have to talk about what's happening. Like, you have to build a narrative. You have to talk about like why things are important, you know? So
yeah,
I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just, yeah, you're right. People think it's so simple. You just go look at all the world records and then ta-da, video's done. Like, no, it's not that easy.
It's like, if you don't even watch the video, right? Like, just watching the videos takes forever.
Oh my gosh, Wind Waker's a 4-hour video at the start. You know, all the old videos are 6 hours long.
Yeah, they're fucking huge, and it's just like, it's just too much, so much.
So much.
All right, the next criticism here on my sheet that I have prepared. I'm about to burp one day.
I believe in you. Let's go, CJ. Let's go.
Okay, burp is gone, but now I lost my train of thought. The next criticism that we have on the list is pretty common. Every video we get it. It's calmed down a lot. in the beginning, there were a lot of people that complained about it, like a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And then those people kind of just settled down. But recently, there's not been as much, like, you know, whatever about it. There's not as much, like, freaking out about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, but the criticism is still there. So, this is, you should move the credits to the end of the video. Nobody wants to sit through the credit sequence in the beginning of the video.
Here's the thing, is I kind of understand that, of like, oh, I want to get into it and just go. But at the same time, we put so much, well, there's a couple of things, really. There's one, which is, we deserve to be seen. Like, this video takes a lot of time and effort. I want you to know that we made this video. I also want you to know that these are the people that helped us make this video, right? And if we put it at the end of the video, people are probably going to click away and never see that, right? So I want to put up front and center, right? Special thanks to everybody who worked with us. Special thanks to all of our patrons and everybody out there. Thank you for watching, you know. And we're the creators of the show, and, you know, here's the song. The other thing, logistically, is that we pay Squidbird to make music for us, and part of that is you wouldn't get to hear any of that music if we didn't have anything to show. Like that, it's so perfect the way that we have it with Squid's music, is that we have like the intro, and I sort of introduce like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is the video we're doing, this is the category we're doing, this is like, I'm setting up the story, right? And then welcome to Speed Dogs. And then we get to hear Squid's awesome music that they made, and it you know, it's like you get to listen for like a minute, right? It's not that long. It's usually about a minute 30. The video usually starts around 2 minutes. Just wait. Trust me, it's gonna be worth it.
Yeah, again, that feels like it comes from people that just don't work on stuff. It's like, guys, you know, they're like, nobody else does that. It's like movies used to have the credits in the beginning of the movie.
Movies still kind of do, you know?
TV shows still do, but they're just like, no, you have a whole credit sequence. It's like, we at least make it fun.
Yeah. Like,
you know?
Like Scrubs. Like TV shows do it. I'm thinking of Scrubs because it's one of the shows I've actually watched a lot of.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
I can do this all on my own.
No, I know. But anyways, so they have like a cold open, right? And then it's like, that kind of sets up the whole thing for the show. And then it's like, you know, I can't do, it's like produced by this person and this person, starring these people, like, and start. And obviously it's kind of short, you know, but Lord knows there's a precedent for it. Let us have it. Let us have a moment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. I agree. And then there's someone listening to this. It's like, you're comparing yourselves to Scrubs? It's like, no, it's an example, asshole. People do that all the time. Like, you give them an example and you're like, wow, you have the balls to compare yourself to some. It's like, no, we don't. It's just an example. You know, this thing that humans do, where they try to explain a complex idea by making it simple and things that you already understand to save time. Yeah, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Yeah, like everybody's seen TV shows, right? So everybody knows what it's like.
Yeah.
Any other notes on the opening credits thing?
No, I don't think I have any. Next one. This one's a little more, like, funny. Like, this isn't real criticism, but I want to hear what your thoughts are on this.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that you didn't make this video, because now so-and-so can't make a video on it.
That's one we used to get a lot. And maybe some of them were rightly deserved, since we were still pretty new, didn't know what we were doing. First of all, you have to assume that person would actually make that video. You know what I mean? Like, like one of the things that inspired us at the start was like, I want to make a video about the communities that I watch that I know not that many people are aware of. You know, like how many people watched Fable TLC speedruns back in 2017? Like KJ Freshly had like 20 viewers. You know, Adam had like 10 viewers. Queen Sarah had like 5 viewers. You think there's a huge audience for Fable TLC speedruns? Nobody knows about that, right? It still deserves credit and it still deserves views, I think. It's a really interesting game and really interesting speedrun. And I'm not just saying that because I watch it, because it's one of my favorites. But, you know, like, it's cool. It's a great game. It's a great franchise, and it's a great speedrun. And when you make a comment that's like, man, I wish somebody else had made this video, is what you're really saying. You know, it sucks that you made this video because I really wanted that person to make a video. Well, you'd have to assume that that person was going to make this video at some point. You know, it's like, oh man, I really wish Tomato Anus was going to make a Fable video. Was he ever? You know, if we didn't tell him to do that, would he do it ever? I don't think so. No shot fired at, you know, TA, but you know, you just can't assume that anybody's going to do anything. So sometimes you just got to get out there and make it. Now, if there was a real situation where it was like both of us were making a video at the same time and ours came out first, and that person goes, oh man, I can't put out the video now, it would just be a scam of whatever, you know, or just be like a copycat thing. That maybe has a little bit of merit, but that has never happened to us before.
Yeah, we've never been in that situation. It's definitely a hypothetical of a hypothetical, for sure.
I will say, there is only one situation where that's ever come up at all, and
it happened to us.
It happened to us, and yeah, so we wanted to make a video, and turns out somebody else was working on that video. Do we want to talk about it?
I don't know. We should name names or be specific. We can talk about it vaguely. Yeah.
I'll mention that it was Jack and Daxter. But that's all.
Sure.
Yeah. I won't mention any other names of people involved. But we wanted to do a video on Jack, right? On Jack 1. And we kind of approached people, and they're like, well, I mean, you can make a video on this category, because that category no one's doing, but like that category somebody's already working on. And we're like, oh, okay. Well, you know, I guess we'll have to, you know, come back later and see what happens. And then.
Yeah.
I guess we don't.
And then they came back to us and were like, hey, do you want to make this video? Because the person that we talked to, like, it was like, hey, you should talk to Speed Docs because they do a good job. Right? We got like a referral out of it.
Yeah. Which is really cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was the fucking day that we put out DKC3, we got that referral. Nice. Which, like, sorry, DKC2. That was like super vindicating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This one I'm not going to address at all. I'm going to let you address it because I feel very strongly about it and I have no objective way of communicating my thoughts.
Okay.
There are a number of comments that say that either the slates, which for people that don't know the inside baseball term that we use, the text on screen graphics that you see, basically like little editor notes or like text on like I call it a slate because it's like the graphic stays the same but the text changes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like a chalkboard in that way, or a slate. That they either are on screen too long, they're not on screen long enough, or they're stupid.
You know, it's never perfect, you know. But as far as like on screen for too long or not long enough, like we've talked about it before, and I don't know if we ever talked about it like on the podcast specifically, but we like when you make a video, you have to have an audio component and a visual component, right? When we're talking about like, oh man, KJ Freshly was using like these rolls to go to Bowerstone or whatever. It's like, okay, so we can show off KJ Freshly doing the rolls to Bowerstone, right? You know, it's like, okay, cool. We know we have a person and an action and a location. Cool. We can show that.
Yeah, we have a noun and a verb.
Yeah. We can show that off on screen while I'm talking about it so that you know what I'm talking about. But then it's also like, yes, and then KJ felt really bad that he didn't get a PB. It's like, how do you show that if he's not like raging on stream, right? It's like afterwards he's like, I just didn't feel that great about it. It's like, well, did we record that? Him saying that? No. Okay, well, then we're just saying it and there's nothing to show. There's no visual component to some things, right? Sometimes you say something and there's just no way to show it off visually. And so you use a slate for that, right? And you can use slates for other things too. But like that's another way of like, hey, we have a spot to fill that we don't have a visual component. Why don't we just put a slate in? Put a slate in, have something on screen, and then while I'm talking about it, if you want to look at it and read the funny text or whatever, or just move on, then you do that. To anyone who says that they're stupid, like, we have to put content somewhere, right? So either we're going to put just the facts, or like you were saying earlier, how you don't get to talk to the audience, right? I get to talk to the audience, but you don't get to talk to the audience. The slates are the only one thing where you can talk to the audience. It's like right. A mime holding up a sign that's like I'm stupid or whatever, It's like, yeah, you don't get to vocally speak on the thing except for the now we're cooking with gas now. And that's the only time you've ever spoken on a show. But
I did read a quote one time.
That's true. That is true. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a time for you to actually get to say something, which is nice. I think it was the Tony Hawk video where we did the packle.
Yes. Yeah.
Where we talked about. I said I like that you got a chance to sort of throw in a little bit of flair. You got to sort of throw your little personality into the video, and I said we need to make more instances where that happens, because I think it's first of all it's fun for the viewer, but it's also it gives you some sort of outlet that's like, hey, listen, I got a little silly idea, I want to kind of throw a little quirky spin on that, and I think that's fun.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't want to talk about it too much, because I think that it's not a situation you can really win.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people underestimate how important cuts are. I think that's the way that I'll talk about it. Sometimes you need to cut. If you watch a video that doesn't cut enough, you feel it. It feels like it's dragging. Things feel long and slow, right? Like when we were looking at videos, not speedrun content, when we were looking at videos together to figure out what we wanted speed docs to be, because we did do that, I was like, CC, this is not, it's like that J.K. Simmons scene. It's like, are you rushing or are you dragging, right? It's like, I know there should be a cut here. We did that with the TTYD video that came out. I was so annoyed at how long like they're between cuts.
I wanted to bring that up at some point, but go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I will. One of the things that we sort of talked about how like I'm Penn and you're Teller in the thing, and we're vice versa. But one of the things that I think that, or what inspires us, is that you're TV and that I'm YouTube. And I think one of the things that's really funny is that I watch that Malio, the TTYD video by Malio, and I'm really interested in the history and like the characters and the storytelling and the glitches that are found and like the presentation, or not the presentation, but more or less like I like the storytelling and those stuff that's going on. And you're like, no, this guy, you literally sent me a PDF document of a huge list of notes that you had taken of like, at this timestamp, this shot goes on for too long. At this timestamp, like this, like who is this person? This person was not introduced in the story. Like, and then, oh, you already know, and like, no, I don't already know. Who is this person?
Yeah. There was a bunch of times where it's like, and it's like that one was the one that pissed me off. Who is this person?
So, yeah, and I think we look at videos differently, where I'm super interested in like how people are telling the story and more or less like what's happening, and you're so much more about like, oh, this person has used the same shot 3 times in a row.
Yeah, And I get very conscious of that, which is why we spend so much time thinking about visuals for the video.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and this is something that I've brought up before, and it's not meant to sound snobby, but when you watch something that's good, it's hard to go back to the garbage. And I'm not saying that video was garbage, but once you get a taste of something good, like expensive wine, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a wine person, you like wine, and you have a bottle of something good and aged, and it's a good year, and you have a nice bottle of wine, it's harder to go back to the gas station chug-a-lug, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to go back to the 7-Eleven Big Gulp after you've had, something better. It's not that, it's like your tastes haven't changed. Your tastes have changed or improved.
Right.
I've seen so much in the way of television and film where it's good, and I've seen it when it's bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when something is not visually on, it's off, and it's distracting, and it takes away from everything else. It's not something I can ignore because I find that, and it's not like I'm saying like, oh, The West Wing is infallible. I look at some of the best shows ever put on the air, or the best movies ever made, and I'm like, why did you do that? And maybe I don't have the knowledge or the wisdom, to understand why they made X or Y decision, or maybe I don't know the technical limitations at the time. But it's just like, I know that there are old movies made, Citizen Kane looks like it could have been made today because of modern techniques,
mm-hmm.
right? But there was like, I did this with you. I showed you a clip from Citizen Kane, and I showed you a clip from another movie that came out that year, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And you were like, oh, Jesus. I'm like, these were released in the same year.
Yeah.
They don't look anything alike. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I think about that when I watch videos like the task, the TTYD one. The other thing is, people take for granted how much you have to spell everything out.
Absolutely.
You have to tell people every time what is SDA. You have to tell them every time what is SRL. You have to treat every video like it's the first video anyone's ever seen, because the people that know aren't offended by it. But the people that don't know need that context in order to understand everything else that you're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's another
so
feedback we get sometimes where I'm like, dog, you don't even know. People are like, dude, why are you talking about every level that we play? Like, dude, everyone's played Mario before. Like, no, they haven't. There are so many people that watch our videos that have never played this game before. And we have to tell you, this is what's going to happen, right? This is what the character's doing. This is what your actions are. You can run, you can jump, you can do a flip, right? Those are your things, right? So just keep that in mind when we go forward and he does a flip over here. That's part of his moveset. That's the only thing you know about this.
Yeah. And keep this in mind. JR works on the videos, and he doesn't know anything about speedrunning. When we pick up these games, he doesn't know the base movement from the speedrun movement.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I look at a game and I'm like, is this not what you're supposed to do? This is all that they're doing.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're not supposed to spam the roll button. Right? Oh. You're not supposed to do this whole thing like this.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
What's really interesting is that in our last video, I wish we had spent a little more time on it in the Shadow of the Colossus video, because watching some just B-roll footage, I learned that most of those bosses you don't fight like that. Like in the actual any percent run, most of those bosses don't play out like that. And not because whatever, but it's like they do stuff that's sort of doesn't look like it's super unintuitive, but like some of the bosses, you have to draw them to a geyser and then flip them over, and that's how you get on them or something. And it's like, nah, they're just gonna run on the horse and jump on it. It's like, oh, that wasn't designed. That wasn't by design. No, okay, that was actually what that's the strat. But we didn't do a bad job on it. I just feel like maybe I should have spent a little more time on it. But what can you do?
Yeah. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna read this next one, and then I'm gonna comment on it first.
Okay.
Because this one's about a decision. It's like there's a million decisions you have to make when you're doing these videos. Some of them are conscious decisions that you stop down and reflect on. Some of them are you do the best in the moment to make the decision that you think is the best. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. Right? Sometimes you write someone's name down wrong and no one catches it until you literally are done with the video and they're like, oh, by the way, that's not how you say this person's name.
Yeah.
It's like,
on release day, it's not Michael T100, by the way. You're an idiot. Why did you think that?
Yeah. At one point, though, that's not the best example, because I was like, I'm pretty sure his name is Michael 100. And you were like, the T is part of the 1. And then the video came out, and then Michael goes, who the fuck is Michael T100?
And nobody said anything. Like, none of the people we worked
Nobody. With. Yeah. We get that all the time, where it's like, why didn't you mention that this was wrong? Oh, we just naturally assumed that you did it on purpose. Why? Why would you assume that? There's never a good explanation for why people don't correct us either. So this is a criticism that you got, and I want to address this before you say anything. Sure. Because, yeah. I'm going to read the comment out, because we get versions of this from time to time, but this one in particular pissed me off.
Go for it.
Oh man, your pronunciation of the Japanese runners makes me cringe a bit. Shirapan is pronounced Shirapanu. Hyphens used to give similar English words to the pronunciation. Unidonu, which is a play on unidon. The word for sea urchin bowl is unidonu. My guess is they wrote it in English as unidon because they assumed the E would get English speakers to correctly pronounce it like unidonu. Or they just assumed that was the English spelling of it. Or if the name came from a different source, then maybe there was a translation mishap somewhere. Norohanto, presuming is a direct translation of the Japanese kana, is pronounced Notohanto, Hananto. Again, pronounce each of these like corresponding English words. Also, something you failed to mention is that given the leaderboard, Unidon had some insane one-handed runs. What a legend. Honestly, if the future you have Japanese stuff to go through, I don't mind helping correct and noting things like this. And I'm like, so not only did you come here to shit on it, then you asked for a job?
Yeah.
My man's hustling backwards, so let me jump in really quick.
Go for it.
Now, there are people that are listening at home that heard me go, in probably what was offensive. Right?
Your words, not mine.
Right? But it is. And if CC had done that, he would have been flamed for doing it. Mm-hmm. You would have gotten people who either made fun of you for being a weeb or whatever you want to call it, and you would have had people that would have shit on you attempting to pronounce it. So, I thought the best course of action was to pronounce it in an anglicized way, right? It's like, we're going to do our best to pronounce it as it is written in English, as you would say that word in English, right? Mm-hmm. We're not going to be like, oh, we're going to try and say it with like a Japanese twang. And we worked with someone who speaks Japanese for the purpose of this video because we spoke members of the Japanese community, right? Mm-hmm. We had Sable. It was our translator, and Sable read the script, by the way, and afterwards I was like, she's like, this comment isn't wrong, but also who gives a shit? Mm-hmm. So it's like, this is a decision that you have to make, and I don't think that at any point you sat down and put your finger on your chin and were like, what do I do? What is the best course of action? No, it's a decision, but it's one that you make like that,
yeah.
Right? You have to make it quick. You can't spend an hour wondering if the right thing to do is. Sometimes you just have to go for it. So I don't accept the criticism of oh, well, you said it wrong. It's like, these usernames, if people can't come to us and say, this is how I would like you to pronounce it, we just have to do our best.
Right.
And so, whether or not if it was in Italian, I'm sure we would have butchered it, right? I've told the story on the podcast about how people have just shit on my ability to speak French because I speak it with a New York accent, right? I totally get it. But, same time, it's like, do I try... Oh, do I go like this? That's way more offensive.
Yeah.
It's like, you just gotta take that I'm gonna say jambone. Just ham, by the way, for those that keeping score at home. Like, So, go ahead, you can get your reply in.
Thank you. I would like to think that I have a pretty decent understanding of languages in general. Granted, my pronunciations are not perfect, and I am not studied in any other language besides a little bit of Spanish. But, yeah, I don't have any formal Japanese training. And when I'm presented with a list of Japanese names, I'm like, I'm going to attempt to give it a shot, and we're going to move on. I'm not going to spend hours and hours being like, yes, let me, consult with like traditional Japanese speakers and like make sure I'm pronouncing this 100% perfectly. It's like, shoot upon, I'm like, that's the best you're going to get, like I could spend a lot more time doing it. And I don't think I'm that far off. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's a shoot upon. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I could have put a little more time and effort. But if I do that, you're right. I'm going to get flamed because it's the uncanny valley of like, you can tell, it's like in Spanish, right? You can tell someone's like, oh, look at this gringo over here. He doesn't know how to speak Spanish, but he's trying, and it's like, that's endearing. I appreciate that you're trying, So, I think there's a part of it where it's like, I could have been gone full Texan. All right, well, we got these here Shirapon, and we got Unidon, and we got Moguston, and I could have just gone full American, and it's like, no, I'm gonna at least try. But I'm not I'm not an expert, and I don't claim to be. So yeah, I don't know. Whenever I see names like that, I'm like, I'm just gonna try. That's the best you're gonna get.
Yeah, I think the other thing thrown in here is the comment that we didn't mention the one-handed run. It's like, yes, we wanted to mention the one-handed run.
No, we did mention the one-handed run.
We did. We didn't show... We didn't have the video.
Yeah, we don't have a video.
You know what I mean?
So I'm like, even a thing with that. And we kind of zoom in on it. It's like, ta-da, that's all you get.
There was a conversation that was like, oh, we should talk more about this. I wish we could. We don't have anything to show. Yeah. It would literally just be another piece of text on the screen.
Yeah.
That people have to read. And at some point, you're just, you're doing like a PowerPoint. So it's like, all right, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's it for the criticism that I have pulled aside here. Again, it's like half real criticism, but half is just like, well, what would you prefer? It's more like trying to give context to that which maybe people aren't super clear on. Mm-hmm. Also, one last thing. The amount of people that watch these videos before they come out, it's more than just we hit render on the video and that's it.
Yeah.
There's at least 3 or 4 versions of the video that gets made. We make revisions. The entire community that works on the video with us gets to see it. JR watches it. CC watches it. Everyone gets to watch it and leave feedback. If it's a really big video, we get more people from the community to watch it. We get mods to watch it. We get Quo to watch it. Like, all those things happen. So sometimes things just slip through the cracks. It's not always obvious what you're missing, or what thing is wrong. But at some point it's like, okay, I feel pretty good in the fact that 12 people who are experts on the game didn't call us to the carpet and say, no, actually, guys, it's unidone.
Yeah. I think it's also important to point out that was the only comment that we got about that. I don't think any other comments are about our pronunciation. So clearly it's not a widespread problem as much as one person has a vendetta and he's trying to be like, actually...
Well, he's trying to get a job.
That too. Where he's like, oh, yeah, clearly you don't know what you're doing, but I could help you. Like, well, why don't you go make your own video, bud?
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So, yeah. I think that's all of the things I wanted to mention in the quote-unquote organized part of the podcast. I did want to leave a little bit of time at the end for debauchery.
Ah, yes, my favorite.
Yes, of course. But now, as I'm sitting here at the end, trying to think of something to debauch. I don't know. We talked about you pulling the pin recently at the old grind. Whether or not you'd consider leaving your gig and going and doing something else, or maybe giving Speed Docs a try full time. I guess that's interesting, right? People might be interested in that.
Sure. Was that my cue to go?
I guess so.
Yeah. I don't know. Like lately, work has just been so, just so unpredictable and stuff. It's really kind of getting in the way of things. And, there's a lot of things that I want to do in my life that I have been putting on hold. I mean, obviously the pandemic has been putting a damper on a lot of things. So, at least I have an excuse. But, in 2020, at the turn of the year, my resolution was I was going to, start my own jam business. I was like, okay, this is the year I'm doing it. And then, of course, things changed. And I said, I'm going to put that on hold for a little while longer. But, I have dreams and aspirations that I want to do. I've been thinking about, quitting the old grind and working on something else.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see. It's, I think one of those things that people don't really think about is people think YouTube is like, maybe the kids do. I don't know if anybody else really does it, but I know the kids think like, oh man, I'm going to be a YouTube star and that's how I'm going to make my living and that's how things are going to be. And YouTube's tough work, you don't get nearly as much money as you think you do.
Health insurance is expensive. Not a lot of people know that.
Yeah, unfortunately, health insurance is expensive. And bills, rent is expensive.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
The rent is too damn high.
It's too damn high. I don't know. I think I'd like to give it a try at some point. The question is when. When's the right time? Is there ever a right time?
No.
Exactly. So, I don't know.
I've definitely thought about it. It's harder for me because I have a lot of other expenses and stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And, for a while, the money that I put in personally was how we were staying, with our heads above water, for the first 2 years at least, before we started doing monthly contributions,
mm-hmm.
And then even other personal investments I've made. It's like, well, it's definitely scary to give up the weekly check and the insurance and the retirement for what?
Yeah. A
very volatile platform with very angry people on it all the time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And as much fun as we have making the videos, as much fun as I have doing events, I have a lot of fun doing events, and as much as there is anything in life called to me, doing SDAT is the thing that is called to me the most,
mm-hmm. right?
I would love to do nothing but make SDAT events and other events like it. But it's as confining as my job is, and as frustrating as it can be, getting a call at 9 o'clock in the morning to come in and look at a printer, and it's it's not fucking plugged in. I had 2 calls like that this week, just but, it's hard to give up the sure thing, and it's a gamble, and there's wisdom in the, there's no wisdom in the thing from The Dark Knight where it's do it like the child did without the rope. Crawl out of this giant ass pit, but do it without the safety net, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't really have the motivation to really do it if you can fail and try again. Sometimes you need to fall without a net or climb without a net.
Yeah.
Like,
that's definitely what I thought. I don't know if that's true for me personally, but the idea of like, if I quit my job and I do this, will I feel like, okay, it's do or die, right? You know, it's like pushing the baby bird out of the nest. You gotta learn to fly. You gotta learn now. You know, and a part of me thinks if that'll work or not. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm the kind of person that it would work for, which is why it's kind of like I'm really hesitant to make that leap, to give up a sure thing for something that I don't, for the unsure thing of making it. But I don't know. Gotta make a jump sometime. So
yeah. And there's no guarantee that jumping to do speed docs full time would make you happier.
Also true.
You know, like, it would be different. I'm sure you would enjoy it, you know, maybe more. You might find it more fulfilling. But is it, like, I think about that too. Like, would I be happy doing this all the time? Now, I feel like I already do speed docs full time and I just work 2 jobs.
Yeah.
With the amount of time that I put into it. But, you know, not everyone can do 80-hour weeks. And, like, have the will to go on.
Yeah, for sure.
So we were talking earlier, CC really turned this on its head where he took my analogy and was like, this is the opposite of real life. And, you know, I'm actually Penn, the loud and bombastic one, and he's the timid or quieter one, right? And I think what's interesting about that is that I'm doing a bit most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I'm doing a caricature of myself most of the time because it's funnier that way.
Right.
Like, you know, it's just funnier to turn everything up to 11. Right? And, but sometimes this betrays me in that, how do I say this? I'm betrayed by the fact that I fall asleep at night, but sometimes I don't actually fall asleep. And then I go to a place which is the Twilight Zone. It has been wrongfully attributed to a cocktail of medication which I take. And the answer is that's not the case. Twilight CJ is the result of, you know, my mom told me this when I was a kid. When you take NyQuil, you have X amount of time before the, like, thing that makes you fall asleep just, like, keeps you up all fucking night. And it's called, she called it missing your window.
Mm-hmm.
And if I miss my window on my medicine, I don't actually think I'm awake. Like, I don't remember it the next day, I should say. But I persist in the world as a caricature who's now overtired and operating without a memory. Which I think I am aware of enough to be like, oh, bitch, I ain't gonna remember any of this tomorrow.
Yeah. Twilight CJ is... Twilight CJ is like my favorite movie character. In that it almost doesn't seem like it's possible, or that it's almost too good to be true. But it's my favorite, you know, character in the play of life. Whenever Twilight CJ is around, it's like, oh, good. Oh, boy.
So, all right. So let me set the stage for everybody. If the caricature of CJ is everything is a little quicker to each emotion, Dan Castellaneta explained that when he changed Homer Simpson's voice, he was doing a thing like Walter Matthau in the earlier seasons. And it was hard because Homer's emotions change so rapidly. It's like, ah! Ooh, donuts. Ooh, Marge. Right? Like, he just experiences the entire spectrum of emotion at the same exact time. And so, it's hard to pin down. And it's hard to do that voice for. So, imagine that the caricature of CJ is like Homer Simpson insofar that I experience the peak of every emotion when I feel any emotion. Mm-hmm. Anger is 10, laughing is 10, right? It's just like, it's all for the bit, right? It's like, I am so angry at Erica, I will never forget. It's like, no, right? It's like, it's dialing everything up a little bit. Twilight CJ does that, but he has no inhibitor. And I'm referring to him as a different person because it feels like a different person. He has no inhibitor chip that stops him from... I don't turn into like a racist or anything.
Yeah.
But there's not the mental box to be checked where I'm like, okay, this could be really funny or this could not be funny. And these are the risks of doing that. There's none of that. It's just full bore through the wall 1,000 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like blackout drunk, kind of. Obviously, drunk people when they're blackout drunk are like, oh, they're wobbling around, they can't stand up straight, and they're slurring the words. But like, imagine that person was in sort of the same headspace, but without the poison coursing through their the physical impairments. There we go.
I'm trying to remember if there's any good Twilight CJ moments off the top of your head that you can think of.
I have a couple, but I don't know if I could talk about them.
All right, well, tell them, and then we'll see what we can keep.
All right. The one that immediately comes to mind was I used to do Ocarina of Time any percent runs, and you would show up and just start telling these crazy stories, and they're mostly about.
Okay, yeah, we can't tell that one.
Yeah.
All right. You got any other ones?
Like I said, you have such a better memory for it that I'm like, I would remember if I was prompted,
Okay, I got one. So I woke up one day and my inbox was filled.
I already know. This is the same stream, by the way.
That was the same stream?
That or like the day after. I swear to God, they were at the same time.
So I woke up in my inbox. I had like 10 or so DMs from people that just said Nellion Mandela. And I'm like, what the fuck is Nellion Mandela? What is that? And like, there was a command for a while that was like Mandela, Nellion Mandela.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. I don't remember doing this. I don't remember having these conversations, but you can remember. If you remember, you can tell the people what happened.
Oh yeah, the bits that I do remember were, it was during one of my 80% runs. I was just practicing Ocarina of Time, and at some point you came in and you're like, does anybody remember that one actor who was in that one movie? Okay, here's another thing. You have a thing where it's, what is CJ thinking? Right? That was part of 3 Pounds of Sea, by the way.
That was, yeah.
I missed that game. You'd be
it's
like,
a fun game.
Who is you always have this thing of like, I know what I'm talking about, but the actual word of like, who is this person or what am I thinking of? Is eluding you, and you're like, I'm thinking of, it's the guy who was in the movie. You do the thing like that, and you were asking this question where it's like, oh, okay, we got to play this game on stream. What is CJ thinking? Okay, it's a guy in a movie. All right, and it's like Tom Cruise. Nope, not Tom Cruise. Give me some details. What movie? What other movies has this person been in? Is this like a tall guy, a short guy, like an old movie, a new movie? And, like, we're trying to get some details, and I forget what it was. We were sort of like, who is this person you're talking about? And you're like, he was in the movie with the thing, and he died, but he didn't actually die. And I'm
okay, so it wasn't a movie, but it was, who was the guy that everyone thought died, but he didn't actually die? That was the prompt, right?
And I was like, Nelson Mandela? And that, like, for whatever reason, that wasn't it. You were like, you kept going, and I think you're thinking of Nelson Mandela, and then at some point later on, you just said Nellion Mandela. You just in all caps, and you misspelled it obviously, and for some reason that just really got our goat, where it was like, you're just fucking Nelson Mandela, and that was it, and everyone in the chat was like, oh my god. in the morning it was like, all right, everyone message CJ, to the point you got so frustrated you're like, please stop talking to me about Nelson Mandela.
Well, because I don't remember. I'm like, what do you mean Nelson Mandela?
It's funny.
What does that mean?
It's an inside joke that you're not a part of, but Twilight CJ is a part of.
Yeah, I'm the instigator.
That's the best part of that story.
Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to find.
While you think of that, one of the things that I think is interesting about you in particular, with the whole fact that you kind of play a bit, and that, you know, that's normally how you kind of go about presenting yourself always. You found something?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One of the things that I find interesting is that you don't talk about it very much, but you used to do stand-up.
I did, yeah.
And I think that's such a really cool thing, because I'm, you know, I feel like a fraud in a lot of ways, but like I really like stand-up comedy. I love the ideal of talking about it. I love like the sort of inner workings behind it. I used to listen to a whole bunch of podcasts from different comedians, and I loved the sort of the inside baseball on comedy and writing for that and doing stand-up, and I really like that you've done that before. And I don't know, I think that's something that I think influences you. It explains a lot about what you do, and that I think you're always sort of it's open mic night for you all the time.
Yeah, I definitely try out material on people, and I just see what sticks. I always am telling stories and seeing what resonates with people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes it's just about finding out how to tell the story and what the punchline is. I mean, to address the thing you said about, you know, you feel like a fraud. I mean, imposter syndrome is real. I mean, no one ever really feels like they made it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a thing. Go ahead.
I think for me personally is that I've been to like 5 stand-up shows ever. So that's why I'm like, I really shouldn't be the guy who's like, I love stand-up, because I've seen, you know, like,
sure.
Granted, I've seen, you know, like on Netflix or on YouTube or something, I've seen plenty of sets, but like I never like been to, like I don't know the local comedy club, you know. I mean, I don't go there. I never been. I don't know anybody who's in here. I don't even know any Texas based, you know, comedians really. So, you know, that's why I'm like, I like the idea, but I don't know if I would say I'm an expert in stand-up. You know, I have an interest in it, but I'm not a hobbyist per se.
I think that Bill Engvall is from Texas.
I think some of the Blue Collar Boys are, yeah.
Ron White.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Steve Martin is from Texas or not.
That sounds right, but I don't know.
Yeah. So, regardless, right? Like, I don't know. I think that it really kind of comes back to my I don't really want to be in the spotlight problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do and I don't. I feel much more confident on a stage than I do having a conversation with one person. And not even outside of an interview setting. Like, this is totally my wheelhouse.
Right.
But, like, having a conversation with 2 people or 3 people, that I don't like. I don't like having conversations in small groups. Put me on a stage with 10,000 people in the audience, and I won't bat an eye.
Mm-hmm.
I will throw up beforehand, but that's part of my ritual. You know, put me in a room full of 500 people, and, you know, I'm going to walk out of that room as being the funniest person that was in that room. But 2 or 3 people, 4 people, I'm like, I just don't feel like this is my zone unless I take over the room. Which is sort of why I go to 11. Because if I can't take over to the room that I'm in and kind of like be funny and be me, I have a hard time existing in that space. Which is a very personal way of saying that you know, it's just like a very personal thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
But in a lot of ways, the things that bother me the most and make me the most anxious were alleviated by pandemic life. And as the pandemic kind of rolls back and we go back to normal, it's starting to like be like, oh damn, there's hello darkness, my old friend. And I remembered one, and I remember one. I woke up one day and I went into your Discord and my name was changed to Wambus. And I had, I guess, somehow, some way, I had, like, said, like, I am Wambus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the context. I don't remember the situation. I never do.
Mm-hmm.
But I woke up and I'm like, who the fuck is Wambus? Why is my name Wambus? You people need a hobby.
Oh, man.
And then I think it was Potato.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we're talking about cute Speed Dogs mascots, which I know wasn't what we were talking about, but now I honestly can't remember. He's ruined history.
Yeah, that's one of those where I remember that incident in particular. I don't remember the context of that was. I think maybe you were trying to say the walrus or something, and you came in, I'm the Wambus. And but that's the thing, is that on my side as well, you know, you came into chat and you started calling yourself the Wambus. And it was like, what do we do? What are we supposed to do with this? And so it's like, all right, I'm changing his name to Wambus. This will be funny in the morning, right? That's the only thing, that there was no significance behind it. But I just find that's really funny. Sometimes Twilight CJ shows up and he's got a bit. Sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't. And I think maybe Wambus was just a bit that you came up with that didn't quite play out the way you wanted it to. I don't know. I laughed, so there's that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like, I think Twilight CJ, I think me in the space between being like fully conscious and aware and being asleep is trying to do the thing where I take over the room, but I'm not in possession of all of my faculties, and so it doesn't work right. Maybe it's that extension of my personality that just doesn't succeed in that space. Which is a very deep way of saying that I shouldn't just I should turn my laptop off when I'm about to fall asleep. Because the other problem is that I can't fucking see anything.
Yeah, that's another thing. Oh, man. Tell the people.
I can't. Okay. I get the milky eyes. And I get it.
You asked in my chat one time, does anybody else hate it when they are tired and they get milk in their eyes? I said, what does that mean?
I'm sitting here, and before God and everyone, when I'm getting tired and it's late at night, my eyes are glassed over. Like, it's like there's a thin layer of milk I'm looking through. And then, you know how like when you're pouring milk and it's like on the side and it hasn't gone down into the glass and it's like on the glass you can't see through? It's like cloudy. It's like that. But that's my eyes. And then I have to like spend a few minutes like focusing and blinking. And then it goes to perfect vision, right? So it's just like, my mom has this problem, and I made fun of her when I was a kid. Now I have the same problem where she says that our eyes are just slow. And I'm like, that doesn't make me feel good, Mom. But at night, as I'm getting closer to sleep, I can't see anything anymore. I can't see the chat. I'm like, God, it's like so foggy. And I constantly, but I'm trying to fall asleep, so I don't really want to stop and like wake up and like blink my eyes a bunch of times or put in eye drops. I'm trying to fall asleep. Mm-hmm. And then when I wake up, probably it's actually faster if I just do one eye. So when I wake up, I just like kind of blink one eye a few times, and then it's like good enough to like get through my apartment. I just mean mugging with one eye closed. But yeah, I can't see anything. I went to the eye doctor, but it's like when you take your car to the shop and then it doesn't do it. Mm. I couldn't replicate the problem at the eye doctor.
We gotta fall asleep on their couch.
Yeah, well, there you go. I gotta fall asleep in the lobby and then wake up and be like, Doc, it's happening.
Did they do house calls?
Even if I don't like blink a bunch of times, the process of blinking does fix the problem. So I would have to hold my eye open and walk into the doctor's office and be like, Doc, I got a fresh one for you. So I have my idiosyncrasies.
Indeed you do.
I'll say one last thing and then we'll start wrapping up. I work with a guy. I'm not going to say his name. He's a young guy. He's like 22. And in this young guy, a lot of us at the dealership see younger versions of ourselves. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's arrogance. But the thing about him that I see in myself, or that I see in my younger version of myself, is he gets so mad and so upset at everything that happens at work. Right? I work in a car dealership. He gets so mad and so bent out of shape and so upset about everything that happens. Any bump in the road is a slight towards him. And anything that happens is like an affront to him as a person. And everything is so personal. And he says that it's because he cares. And hearing that makes me remember... It makes me recoil. Because it makes me remember a time in my life where I felt like my work was my passion. And if you're listening to the podcast and you've been enjoying the All-Star series that we did, and you enjoyed the podcast, or you enjoy Speed Docs, you enjoy either CC or my stream, it's not in general a great idea for your day job that pays your bills to be your passion, because you will always be hurt and let down. Because your job doesn't exist for you to be in that space, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a great environment for that. You're a cog in a bigger wheel, that is working to churn out an end product for somebody else. So you can take pride in the work that you do, you can care about what you do, but to get so worked up about every single thing, it's not a great way to be. And I say all of that to say that Speed Docs fills that hole in the wall odd shape for me, where I am excited to work on something that isn't my work and let that be the thing that I'm passionate about. And the balance in my life that Speed Docs has brought, it cannot be understated. Yeah, I have a really crazy job. If you hang around long enough, you'll hear stories about my job that'll make you go, wait, what? Right? It's a weird place to work. A lot of weird things happen. I'm asked to do a lot of strange things. But, whereas 3 years ago, I would have really been out of shape about it. I would come home, I'd bring it home with me, I'd be very upset. It would affect my mood. There were weekends I didn't want to go back to work on Monday. And now I don't have that. I found an outlet that works for me, that, I can have that passion and channel that into creative outlets that are productive, right? Mm-hmm. Because the other thing about taking that work home with you is it's not productive. You're just churning your wheels, you're churning your own butter, and you're just getting worked up about stuff that you honestly can't control. I'm not talking about the actual things that jobs do that are scummy. I'm talking about the everyday bullshit. Mm-hmm. Someone parked in my space. This person said this about me. Not harassment, not anything like that. The stuff that you can control whether or not you get upset about. Or I'm just trying to do a good job. It's like, nobody cares. That was the other thing I had to learn. Nope, my boss does not care if I do 130%.
Right.
Do my job. He literally has said to me, I don't pay you to do 130%. I pay you to do your job. And he is not the charitable figure that sentence makes him out to be. I mean, he didn't get to, wear boat shoes and loose-fitting golf shirts to work because he's bad at his job. So, all of that having been said, Speed Docs is a great outlet for creativity. I hope that if you're listening to this, you have a way to express yourself so that you aren't that angry person. And that you have a way to channel that energy into something productive. Whatever it is. It doesn't have to be anything specific. And the only other thing that I'll say about that person and how they kind of wear it on their, wear their heart on their sleeve and they really take it in the chin is that, you have to really know yourself to be in a position and be okay with who you are, to be in a position where this relationship where you can work all the time really works for you. I joked that I work 80 hours a week on Speed Docs and my day job because I'm in a good enough place that I can do that. So you got to know who you are. You have to be able to do that. Otherwise, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. You're going to be upset and nothing's going to get done. Or it'll burn you out and you won't have anything left. You'll have to start over on something else. So, and, obviously feel free to talk about any of that stuff that I mentioned.
Yeah. Speed Docs fills a role in my life that's like, it feels good to contribute something to sort of like the grander scheme. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people go their whole life and they don't really build anything. That's kind of a weird way to put it, but I think people, you don't have to create a big thing, but it doesn't mean physically or even digitally, but just it's a good feeling to contribute something because as someone who watches a lot of YouTube, it's like I consume so much and I love the content that I consume. And I wish that I could make content that other people consume in the same way. And I don't know. I want to give back, and Speed Docs allows me to do that. Where it's like it's a topic that we're passionate about. It's a topic that we enjoy, and that we're knowledgeable and we're equipped to do so, to talk about it. And so Speed Docs does provide a thing for us where, if I wasn't doing Speed Docs, I would probably want to create a different show,
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It feels good. It feels good to make something that people like and that they appreciate and that people want more of. It's a good feeling. And if anybody is out there listening, I would encourage you to consider, in your own way, finding something that you can make that other people can enjoy. And it's not so much from a perspective of like you need to give back, like you're a taker, you take, never give. It's not like that. It's like there's a feeling you get inside where whenever you make something that other people accept, where it's like you give it out and they're like, ooh, it's like, oh, that feels nice. So I would encourage everybody to, in your own way, find something that you can do, whether it be writing, drawing, or creating something like a video or a podcast or something like that. Consider giving, even if it doesn't like make it big or become huge and successful. As long as it changes somebody's life or makes an impact on someone, I promise it'll feel good.
All right. Last thing, because you mentioned it briefly. Do you remember when I said I didn't have anything to contribute to the lexicon of the world, and you laughed at me?
Yeah. Yeah. Notice how you made a Simpsons reference in this podcast, and you're like, no, I so much has already been said about the Simpsons. I could never make anything that would contribute to the global zeitgeist, I think is what you said, or something. You said the lexicon was the word that you used. I think I'm coming up with that. But I think you might think that there's no place, but there's a million Let's Plays of Minecraft or whatever on YouTube, and I bet one of those Let's Plays is really important to at least somebody.
Yeah, I agree.
So just because the market's flooded probably means you won't make it financially successful and get big and famous off of it, but you could make a series, you can make something that I think a lot of people would enjoy.
That's why the best advice is just to make stuff for you.
Yeah, make stuff that you like making, and hopefully other people like it too.
Yeah. All right, that is going to do it. Thank you so much, CC, for another supersized episode. This is the final episode for the time being. I'm sure it'll come back as an incentive in the future of Speedrun Insider All-Stars. This has been a good run. If you enjoyed the episodes, let us know. Join the Discord. You can find my guest today at twitter.com/CCNeverender, NEVERENDER. All one word, CCNeverender. Same on Twitch, twitch.tv/CCNeverender, youtube.com/CCNeverender, and speedrun.com/user/CCNeverender. Again, all spelled the same way, CCNEVERENDER. And you can find SpeedDocs wherever you go as well, twitch.tv/SpeedDocsYT, twitch.tv/SpeedDocs, youtube.com/SpeedDocs, and we don't have an SRC account, but you can go to the store, speeddocs.tv. We have all of our little merch that you can buy. So thank you, everyone, for listening to the show. Keep giving us your feedback. Keep listening, sharing with your friends, telling people about it. That's how we keep the show just the way that we like it, free and clear of outside influence. And this will be the last All-Stars episode, so we will just so there will be a regular episode this Friday, and then we will go back to doing one episode a week on Fridays. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We hope you enjoyed All-Stars, and we'll see you Friday with another episode of Speedrun Insider. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great rest of your day.
Toodles.